Hi, I'm Jason Gorber for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about George Miller's 3,000 Years of Longing from the Cannes International Film Festival. Now, last time George Miller was here, he was actually president of the jury at Cannes. The year before, he had brought Fury Road, which is a film that, for him, felt like a 3,000-year journey. Mad Max, one of the greatest films of this century, absolutely. So inevitably, whatever he was going to show was probably going to be a little bit different than this film that, for him, was over a decade in the making, completely transformed the way that that type of action cinema could actually be translated on the big screen. We knew we were going to get something probably pretty good, but not probably something of that level. Nonetheless, he managed to once again create a wonderful mood, brought in some pretty terrific performances by Tilda, Swinton, and Idris, Elba in this story about story. It's a love story about the stories of love. It's quite as simple as that. In fact, if there's one film in a funny way that it connects with, it's actually Life of Pi, which is also not a love story, but it's certainly that kind of sort of rich, raw narrative that requires an absolute commitment to simply go where it's going. It is absolutely a film. Miller's film, like Life of Pi, is a film of very precise visual style, very precise narrative style that you kind of have to either kick in with or it's just not going to work for you at all. I'm not entirely sure it's entirely successful, but what a beautiful, beautiful attempt, if that makes any sense. I'm also convinced, I mean, this is my own little nonsense, that the film if the film was not in English, it actually would be received much more positively. There's something to be said about exoticism, even if you speak the language, that we simply see because of Hollywood, because of everything, that English language cinema has a quotidian nature to it. It's just like when things truly get mystical, we don't buy it quite as much, which is kind of remarkable, since obviously Hollywood always was a dream factory. But I think in today's day and age, English language cinema, unless it's animation, unless it's like the big broad Marvel nonsense, just doesn't work when you're just simply relying on things to take you to a different place, for you to sort of engage in the story, for you to sort of believe for a brief moment in things sort of outside of experience coming true. From the opening moment, you sort of know that you're being taken on a journey by somebody that really knows where to place the camera. There's a couple moments that are showy. I was going to say there's nothing showy. There's a couple moments that are like, oh, I see what he's doing here. And it's really quite lovely. It's like to see somebody who has such rich visual storytelling chops, telling something that's essentially a character piece. I mean, in a funny way, it's a film that, for the first time, really feels like a COVID film in the best possible way. So much of it takes place in one hotel room. You actually see moments of teaching people wearing masks. It's just a new normal. So it very much feels like a film of every time. I mean, it's this immortal story that's told over and over and over again, but it's also very much a film of now, where we're simply telling stories to try to recognize what it is that we can actually accomplish together. That what ties us together are these stories that we use to make sense of the world. There's some beautiful moments where they're articulating the difference between science and myth, and just that as the role of science sort of takes over, the role of those explanations we had, those stories that we use to actually make sense of the world, have diminished, and as such, maybe our sense of wonder has slightly gone away. But we still continue to look for. I mean, the thing that puts light to that is that we continue to look for in films like cinema to actually take us places there. Again, I don't think the film's a breakthrough. I don't think it's the most amazing thing ever, but I definitely see it as something that is quite beautiful, made by a master of the medium, who's bringing all of his attention to something that absolutely could have been seen as twee or ridiculous or even forgettable, but instead, thanks to some committed performance, some sort of dancing around our expectations from this type of genre, and telling the story of a jinn and a woman. Basically, it's a genie story. It's Aladdin. It's a million other stories, but told in a way which is actually quite subtle and quite beautiful at moments. And it's those tiny moments, probably overshadowed by the rest of it, that actually makes it quite lovely and quite responsive to watch. It's what happens when you actually have a story like this told and presented by somebody that knows what the mechanism of this story is. Like, how are you surprised when you already know how the roller coaster is going to, what the track is actually going to be? How are you going to be surprised by a magic trick when you know how the trick's actually done? That is the the nature now of cinema. We are so, in many ways, experienced with what actually takes place, that when we actually see something which treads common ground, we have our built-in expectations, and the film absolutely ties with that. So there we are from Cannes Film Festival. I'm Jason Gorber. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, follow us on social, and we will see you next movie. Take care.